Washington, D.C., where it's 10 o'clock in the morning. But as I look around the world and where you are, I think I should be saying to some of you good afternoon and some of you good evening. So let me just say welcome. It's wonderful to have so many of you joining us. And I hope that you're all doing okay during this very challenging time. Maybe we can take our minds off of the global pandemic and maybe focus on what makes us a lot happier. And that's thinking about our young learners and how we can help them learn English by engaging them in real communication. So let's get started. I want you to think a little bit and then begin typing in the chat room how you would describe very young learners. I think probably a lot of you have already been teaching them. Some of you may even have children who are young learners, or you've taken care of them. What are some of their characteristics? What are some adjectives you could use to describe them? Please take a few minutes or a few seconds and type in the chat room. Okay. Yep. These are great. Yep. Energetic, curious. Yes. Hyperactive. Yes. Enthusiastic. Wonderful. Wonderful. Yeah. Lots of agreements, lots of very interesting insights of our young learners. You could go ahead and keep typing. I'm just going to go ahead and give you what I think are some of the things. Many of them you have already mentioned. I think first and foremost, many of you talked about how energetic and active they are, and this probably is one of their major characteristics. And it says to us that we need to make sure we have activities in which they can actually use some of this energy and actually act out physically what it is they're going to be doing with the language. They're also spontaneous, which is just so wonderful for us. They're not afraid to participate. They'll do almost anything that we ask them to do. They're curious and they're receptive to new ideas. And in fact, they really like exploring their world. They're imaginative. They enjoy make-believe. They have no trouble talking to puppets. They can certainly believe in dragons and princes. The animals talk to each other. All of this is something that they can imagine and enjoy. They view the world in relation to themselves, which means it's very important that we keep in mind whatever themes we're using, that there are ways in which there are links to them. They're social. They like to interact with other children and with their teacher and their families. And we're very lucky about that because, of course, then they actually participate. The other thing, however, is they can be easily distracted and bored. They have relatively short attention spans, which means that we probably need to be changing our activities about every 10 minutes and maybe have one that's very physically active, followed by one that's a little bit more quieter where they work at their desks. And when people say that young learners have short attention spans, I always wanted to say, don't we all have short attention spans? Haven't we all been in language classes in which we were bored and so we were easily distracted? Haven't you seen people take out their phones and actually use them when there are times in which they're supposed to be paying attention? So I think we all have short attention spans, though. This is really important for young learners. And they can be challenging to teach, but primarily that's in managing large classes. And we're going to talk about some of the ways in which you can use language and songs and chants to actually help manage those classes. So, having trouble getting my mouse there. There we go. And so what do they like to do in their English class? Are they interested in learning grammar rules? Are they interested in memorizing vocabulary? That's the way many of us learned languages, and maybe even today, some of us are learning that way. Or are they interested in communicating, in using language in meaningful and relevant contexts? Think about those characteristics. In talking about themselves, because they're very self-oriented and the things that interest them. And yet they also exploring their world and other worlds, especially of other children. I think probably it's very clear what I believe. Let's instead put it in the words of the Vietnam Ministry of Education and Training. They say in their English curriculum overview that young learners learn a language through hands-on experience and exploration of the world. They're inclined to acquire the target language naturally rather than to learn it formally. So there's a lot of really good insight here that we need to involve them in hands-on experiences, in exploring their world and the larger world, the more global world, that we need to provide them with opportunities to acquire the target language naturally. And that's going to be through interaction, through conversation, through communication, and doing this for a number of times so that they actually acquire it, rather than giving them the rules and teaching it formally. So what are some ways then to engage very young learners? We could personalize. Since young learners tend to relate everything to themselves, we need to build on that. And we'll talk a lot about the kinds of things that they're interested in. We need to appeal to their curiosity because they really are so curious about the world. So about unusual or different animals and plants and people, especially other children from other parts of the world, through celebrations. Involve them in simple action and interaction with their teachers, with peers, with families at home. And that's going to be really important, where they have a chance to use some of this that they're learning at home with their older brothers and sisters or with parents or grandparents. But this simple action or interaction, we want to make sure we have a lot of gestures that they can use, which will help them to remember a lot of actions, a lot of role plays. And again, because they are very imaginative, we can involve them in stories and projects. And perhaps most important, we need to make sure that we're making learning fun through using songs and chants, role plays, and games. So first thing we said is personalizing. Well, what are our young learners most interested in? Well, first and foremost, themselves and their names. And we're interested in that too. We want to get to know them. We want to learn their names and know about them. They're interested in their families, how they play, what they like to do, what they like to eat, how they feel, where they live. And then, as I mentioned, unusual animals or plants and children from different cultures. We're not going to have a chance to go through all of these, but I'll give you some good examples of some of these. So let's start with this. One of the first ways we're going to want to engage our young learners is communicating about themselves and specifically introducing themselves. So this is actually the first thing that the children will see in the student book of level 1 of Welcome to Our World, the second edition. And I'm going to be giving a lot of examples from this book, but in most cases, I'll also talk to you about how you can do these things with other materials, with flashcards, with drawings on the board and the like, or with puppets. So the first thing we want them to say is, my name is, and then to respond, nice to meet you, and nice to meet you too. And later on to respond to, what's your name? But you might want to just begin with these two mascots. Here is Freddie, the frog, and Eddie, the elephant. And you could actually now listen to them talk to each other. But I think what I'm going to do first is I'm going to be Freddie, because you can easily be Freddie. Freddie just has kind of a high-pitched voice, and Eddie, being an elephant, has a much lower voice. So let me start with that one. We're going to have them say, my name is Freddie. My name is Eddie. Nice to meet you. Nice to meet you too. And then we actually also have, we could actually begin by saying, my name is Jody, and then have Freddie respond, my name is Freddie. And over time, then I point to myself and then point to one of the children and have the children say, my name is. A nice way to begin, if you're in a classroom and you have enough space, is to ask the children to sit in a circle, get a ball, and you start with the ball, point to yourself and say, my name is Jody, or my name is Dr. Crandall, whichever you would be using. Then roll the ball to a child and have that child point to himself, and you can point to that child, and that child will say, my name is Vin, my name is Anna. And over time, we're going to add to this, nice to meet you, and nice to meet you too. But we're not going to do that all at once. We're going to actually take some time for that. Another nice activity you can do is to have them line up and have the first child introduce himself and say, my name is Boa, and then the next go to the back of the line, and another child then gives her name, and it might be Marissa, and my name is Marissa, and so forth. In fact, if you're in a classroom, you could have them do this as they come into class, or if you're online, you could actually go around the gallery view and give them each a chance to introduce themselves. Another kind of fun activity is to eventually have them turn to a partner, and or they could do this in line where the first child turns behind to the second and says, "My name is," and the other one responds and then says, they say, "Nice to meet you too." And eventually then you can actually have them add, "What's your name?" Here's a good example of a song that you could actually use to help them. And
Track 0.5. Listen and sing.
Hello, hello, my name is Freddie.
Hello, my name is Eddie.
Nice to meet you, nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
okay, so the first time when you play this song, you're going to want to use Freddie and Eddie because that's what they've been focusing on. But then in subsequent times, you're going to want to just be able to sing that song with them and include your name, and then ask the children to say, "Hello, my name is," and they can say it all at once. Children do not mind at all talking at once. And in fact, I often say that if I'm hearing noise in the classroom, it's probably a good sign. It's probably mean that people are learning. So one of the very first units in level 1 has to do with children's eyes, nose, mouth, and ears. And in this one, they're going to have a chance to first learn those by gestures. And the teacher can point to your eyes and say, "Eyes, eyes," and do the chant with them, and then nose, and then mouth. Or you can turn it around and actually do this with the song. And if you notice, the song actually has with it an illustration of 4 wonderful little children, each one pointing to one part, to either their mouth, their nose, their eyes, or their ears. And so what I would do probably is begin with actually having them learn the lyrics. But first, I think let's do this. We're going to watch some children in the Philippines singing this song and doing the gestures. And then we can teach our children those gestures. I think you could actually use this and begin with it. It's so charming. It's definitely going to spark your children's curiosity. And they get to see the gestures while they're actually watching the children and listening to them sing. And note that this is going to be real communication on several levels, because you're going to have them first watch while you do the singing and the gestures. And then you're going to have them follow along with the gestures. And then eventually over time, they're going to sing and use the gestures. And they don't have to get it perfectly right. If you looked at that video, not everybody was quite doing quite as well as everyone else. But that's the fun. And of course, what is also fun is that song ends with "Let's stomp and clap our hands." And those are really nice gestures for you to remember. When a child is learning vocabulary, you might want, when they hear a word that you've just taught, when they hear the word mouth, for example, and you say mouth, they then know they can clap or they can stomp their feet. They can tell you that they actually understood. Again, this is real communication. And doing this, singing, chanting, acting out, provides them with a way to have fun. Then after that song, they could actually listen to the song again and draw. And this is in an activity book where they actually put in the parts of the face with the mouth, the nose, the eyes, and the ears. But you could actually just draw that on the board. You could pass out an illustration and have them fill it out. And again, here we are with a sound of music. They're going to, pardon me, the sound of English. I guess I think I'm Julie Andrews. With the sounds of English. In this case, the sound is M, M, and so they hear the M and they circle the word mouth, which has a M in it. And so every lesson you ought to be focusing a little bit on individual sounds, because this is where we're getting them to actually build their communication, build their pronunciation. This unit, by the way, also teaches the numbers 1 and 2, and you can imagine that you could use that drawing to say eyes, 1 or 2, mouth, one or two. And actually, you could even have them, when you say mouth, they could jump once. And if you say ears, they could jump twice. So there are a lot of ways in which you can use gestures and ways of actually getting them to act out and to show you in different ways that they understand. Now, we talked about one of the problems sometimes in managing classes of young learners is that they're very active, and we need to find ways to kind of focus their attention and to go from activity to activity. One of the first things I think you want to do is create songs or chants that you can use for classroom management. You undoubtedly have some that you use. I'm going to give you an example, but you want one that begins the class and helps them to settle down and know that now we're switching to English. You might want a transition song, since we did talk about activities should be fairly short. So you're going to be moving from one activity to another several times. So you might have a transition song. Then and that also depends on how long you're with these children. If it's a very short class, maybe you're only going to have one transition. You probably would like a cleanup song if in fact you are in a classroom, but the children can help you put things away, or if it's virtual, they can begin putting things away in their homes. And then you, I think, would want a goodbye song or chant to let them know it's time to go, and maybe if in class, to line up. So here is a good example of a hello song. And if you'll notice, it's adapted from La Cucaracha from Mexico.
Track R.1. Hello Song.
Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hello, hello, how are you? I'm very good, yeah. I'm very good, yeah. Thank you very much, and you?
Okay, this is a really simple one, but notice how well it manages to convey appropriate pronunciation, intonation, rhythm. Hello, how are you? Hello, how are you? Hello, hello, how are you? I'm very good. I'm very good. And thank you very much. And you. So it does it. You could do this as a chant, but it actually does a very nice job. And this is one of the strengths of our young learners, is they pick up pronunciation very, very quickly, much better than we do as older learners. So here is in fact the value of songs and chants. It gives them a chance to develop that good pronunciation and rhythm, intonation, and fluency. It helps children remember vocabulary and language patterns or chunks. And they remember just a word and then a word with one other word, and eventually over time, chunks, which will eventually expand to be short questions and answers. They lead to spontaneous production. I think we've all had the experience where we say a word and all of a sudden everybody starts singing the song. So for example, I might say mouth, and before I know it, at least a couple of kids in the class will be saying my mouth, my nose, and so forth. They develop confidence. And different songs and chants also help children become familiar with different sounds and rhythms and cultures. And we're going to see some examples of songs from other cultures. You just saw the hello song from the La Cucaracha from Mexico. And then when combined with gestures, then songs and chants are even more effective because they involve visual, auditory, and kinesthetic strategies. So we want to make sure that we use lots of songs and chants as a way of helping to manage classes, but also we use them because they're so good at helping children to develop confidence and develop good pronunciation and remember language. Remember, songs are repeated numerous times, and that really helps with acquisition. So here is a unit from a little higher level, focusing on how children play. And I would teach the vocabulary in this with a lot of gestures. I would first point out that we've got a swing. In fact, we've got two swings. So I would say a swing and a swing. But then when I'm saying a swing, I would actually act out how we swing. I have my hands up like it's on the ropes, and then I would go back and forth and back and forth. And I would say a swing. And then later on, I would say I'm on a swing. And the same thing with a slide. I would say a slide, and I would do the gesture of going down from the high point to the low point, and then I'm on a slide. and then a seesaw with the gesture of being on a seesaw, going back and forth and back and forth. And then I would say, I'm on a seesaw. And so you actually could say, do the actions now and have them say, I'm on a seesaw as they're doing the action. So I would say, now you do it. And some of them will just do the swing, but we could also say, now say, I'm on a swing, I'm on a slide. Now we have another set of vocabulary, which is very important in terms of play. And those are some of the verbs of action for jump, run, and climb. And again, we can really act these out and then ask the students to show you jump, show you run, and show you climb. Climb, they're going to probably just have to act out with the way you would do this. And you could also have to reinforce this, have them be in a circle, and then you could say run, and you could have them run, run, run. You could say, okay, show me jump, to have them jump, and it's so forth. And you could say, show me jump 1, 2, and reinforcing what they've learned previously. Later on, you could have children play charades. One can come up to the front of the class and jump, and actually the children have to say jump, or even further, jump to the swing or run to the swing, climb to the slide, jump to the seesaw. So they're going to put these together, act them out. And with all this repetition, think how much they're actually going to be learning. And then they get a chance to actually respond to a question of what can you do? And here we have Mia the monkey talking to Freddie the frog, and Freddie says, I can jump. And so there are stickers that children can then put on each of these things. And you could say, what can you do? And ask the children, can you jump? And the child would say, I can jump, and put a sticker on. I can run, I can climb. And what you might be doing while they're putting the stickers on, you might be going around and looking and saying, Tara can jump. Maria can run, and so forth. So you want to be reinforcing it. And then later on, you're going to ask the full thing, what can you do? And answer, they can answer with, I can climb, I can run, I can jump. They also like to talk about what they like to eat. And I particularly love the photo here because on the left-hand side, we have a wonderful pair of bears who are made out of rice. And of course, that's one of the key vocabulary words. And I think you're going to find that they're going to know many of these, but you're going to also need to teach these. And the key language for this particular unit is, do you like rice? Do you like chocolate? Do you like yogurt? And so forth. And they answer simply, here it is. Do you like yogurt? Eddie asks, and Mia says, yes, I do. And Freddie says, no, I don't. And so you have a chance for them to, each time you could ask them, well, do you like yogurt? And then you might ask them to put their hands up if they do, and then say, circle the happy face and show how to do that. And then if you say, how many don't? No, I don't. And they raise their hands, then show how they would circle. And so they're getting a chance now to develop some visual literacy, where these happy faces and sad faces are the beginning of learning a lot about these emojis. And they actually are going to be using these in other activities. So it's a very nice way of getting them to practice this, but also to reinforce it with circling happy or sad. And then, of course, that's actually what we're going to be doing here in language and use. Now they're going to have a chance to listen to how do you feel? And I'm mad. And they're going to then draw one of those faces. And there's a happy face, a sad face, a mad face, and then up at the top, that's a very tired face. That's a yawn. I think that's a little harder to understand, but you could actually act that out and show them. And then they're going to actually get a chance to make a happy or a sad puppet. And this is, every unit ends with a project. And this is a wonderful way to bring a lot of this back together. And actually, children can do these at home. You need to make sure that all of the materials are readily available. And you can see here, all you really need to have is 2 circles of different colors and some crayons and some glue and a little bit of string or yarn to make hair, and then something that they can hold it with. And that could be a popsicle stick, it could be a chopstick, it could be a straw. And notice very simple directions. All of this is visual. As children get a little bit older, you can actually start adding some words for directions. So here's another project, and this one is at the end of a unit on wild animals. And one of the animals is a penguin. And I love this penguin. Again, very simple, but notice how this is developing children's fine motor skills by having to color along the edge of a paper plate, by having to cut things into shapes. And you may have to help them with that, or their parents may have to help them make that triangle, but eventually they'll be able to do those. And then they can see how they actually paste it together to actually have a penguin. When teaching that vocabulary, you might want to, in fact, show them how penguins walk. This is a kind of a nice photo from Belo Horizonte in Brazil. The teacher actually had the children doing artwork on, it looks like a white wall, a whiteboard wall, and you can see that they're really into it. This is the beginning again of developing fine motor skills, but notice how much they're enjoying it, because in fact, it's very creative for them to be able to be doing this. So what makes projects so engaging? Well, first and foremost, it's a great way to learn by doing. It appeals to their creativity and imagination. It provides them an opportunity to use the language, to keep learners engaged. And I think maybe most important, they can be proud of what they have accomplished, and they can share what they've created or learned with others in the class or with their families. And I just have a note here. The directions for very young learners must be illustrations, and they must be very clear each step, and then materials should be easily available. So we're going to do some more with gestures and role play. We've done quite a bit with that, but this is really very creative. We're going to actually teach the vocabulary with gestures. All right, I think the bug is probably pretty easy to teach. You could either have them pretend it's a flying bug because it looks like it is, or if it's the ones on the left-hand side, it might be ones that crawl. So you could pretend and have them use their hands and crawl on the desktop. Now, how are they going to act out being a tree? Well, let's do the sun next, because it's probably next easiest. Well, they just ask them, what's the sun look like? And they might be able to know that you just put your hands up above and form a circle, and that's the sun. Now, how about a tree? Well, trees are very tall, especially with what we have in this picture. So they might hold their hands up and stand up and be a tree. And how about grass? Well, with grass, they might want to sway back and forth as grass actually, when the wind sways. Now, the flower is a little harder, but I think what you could do with the flower is you could actually have the flower pose. And if you looked at the vocabulary, you'll see that some of this is actually done in language and use. So they can pretend to be a tree, pretend to be grass, pretend to be the sun and a flower and a bug. You might have them come up. If you point to the actual word or the picture of the sun and then do the action, you might say sun in the beginning. They just do the actual gesture, and then later on they say the sun. And another activity, you could actually create a worksheet in which they have to put these 5 things in the right order. So they have to put the grass on the ground, the tree above it, the sun even above that, and then the flower someplace above the grass, and the bug can be flying almost any place. But in other words, again, building fine motor skills, but also showing that they understand what these are. Another activity, you could ask them to collect bits of grass and leaves and a flower, and you could make a collage out of it. They could, or they could actually bring that in a paper bag, and they could show what they have. Or you could do that. You could create a paper bag and you could pull something out in class. Somebody else could do it, but you could pull it out and say, and ask them, what is this? It's grass. Okay. So there's lots of things that you can do with these pictures. And the next 4 slides are from a big book. There is a big book for every 2 units in Welcome to Our World. That the one book integrates language that's from two different units, so it acts as a summary or as a review. So here's one, a book that comes with a unit on pets, My Dog is Small, and also the unit you just saw on the bug, the flower, the tree, which is look at the bug. So let's take a look at this. We're not going to have a lot of time, but I'll show you what we have here. So we have a cat. In this case, it's a small cat, a little cat. It's a kitten. And the kitten says, look, mommy, the sun, it's big and orange. And it's funny that I guess it is orange. I think of the sun as yellow. And the mommy says, yes, it is. Now go and play. Notice with play, find your friends. And so little cat goes over and talks to dogs, big dogs, and says, can I play with you? And the dogs say, look, a cat, he's small. So I'm probably not going to work. Then the kitty goes over and notice how all of a sudden the cat has gotten so big. And the cat says, can I play with you? And the birds in the tree say, look, a cat, he's tall. So they're afraid. Oh, sorry, let's go back. And then the kitten goes to where there is a pond and there's some fish and it says, can I play with you? And the fish say, oh no, a cat, he's big. So see the difference in whether you look big or small, depending upon the other one. And then the kitten finds a rabbit and the rabbit says, you can play with me. And the kitten and the rabbit go back to mommy and say, mommy, this is my friend. And the Bobby says, nice to meet you, rabbit. So a very nice review. And actually at the end of the big book, there's opportunities to use that vocabulary in other ways from those two units. So in the first look at the flower and what color is it? And the next one on the other side is the dog big or small? And you'd use that with the dog and the cat and the fish and the birds. We also want to appeal to our children's curiosity. And I mentioned that penguin, that the project, and that comes from this unit of wild animals. Yeah, they're going to know some of these. They're going to know a frog because of Freddie. They're going to know a monkey because of Mia. And probably they know some of these. You might even act out some of them, and like how elephants sway from side to side with their trunk, and how penguins walk in a very strange way. I'm sure they know some, but the others you're going to have to probably teach. But one way they're going to actually also be able to learn it is through a song. And this is kind of a guessing game song. What is this animal?
Track 3.4. Song. Listen and sing.
Can you guess what is this animal? It has a big long nose and two big teeth, big ears, big eyes, and four big feet.
It is an elephant. Can you guess what is this animal? It has a small black nose and big white face, black ears, black eyes, and four black legs.
It is a panda.
Obviously, your children will love making the sounds of the elephant and the panda. And I saw some of you in the chat room saying, let's dance. It's pretty hard not to want to just get up and dance to that song. So they could actually act out being an elephant and being a panda. Okay. And here is a wonderful story to act out. And many of you probably have already used this. It's called The Very Hungry Caterpillar. Again, the entire story is online. With each page of the book. You can actually get that with Eric Carle doing the narrating, but I actually think I like some of the ones that are videos of teachers teaching this. But again, the story is really quite simple. We have a wonderful caterpillar and he wakes up and he is incredibly hungry. And so he starts eating through everything that he can find. And on the first day, which is Monday, and there's a review of the days of the week, he chews through an apple, but he's still hungry. On Tuesday, he chews through 2 pears, but he's still hungry. On Wednesday, he chews through 3 plums, but he's still hungry. And at this point, the children are going to spontaneously say, but he was still hungry. On Thursday, he ate through 4 strawberries, but he was still hungry. On Friday, he ate through 5 oranges. And then on Saturday, he ate everything he could find that was really probably bad for him. He ate pizza, he ate ice cream, he ate pickles, he ate hot dogs, he ate everything that he could find because he was just so hungry. But then guess what happened on Sunday? On Sunday, he had a very bad stomachache, and you'd want to rub your stomach for that. And so he had to eat something. He ate a green leaf and he felt much better. And at this point, then he wasn't hungry anymore. In fact, he became a very big caterpillar from all that he ate. So he builds himself a house, which is a cocoon, and then stays inside of it. And then after about 2 weeks, he nibbles through the cocoon and actually pushes his way out. And as we all know, the life cycle of a caterpillar, he emerges as a butterfly, a beautiful butterfly. So you can have the children actually acting out being the caterpillar going through all of this food. I highly recommend the story. And it's for very young learners, but I think you can use it with young learners a little older. And you want to, again, appeal to their imagination. Remember, they have no trouble thinking there are things like dragons and there are castles. And in castles, you might have a princess and a prince. And this dragon may be not a very nice dragon. And so eventually there's this story, which is actually told through song. A princess is being kept in the castle by a dragon. And eventually the king, the prince comes, and together they become a queen and a king. And so we have the language in use is, what's the story about? And Polly the parrot says it's about a king and a dragon. And so again, they have a chance to actually think about what life would be like in a castle, what life would be like having a dragon keeping you in the castle. We also want them to become aware of and celebrate other cultures. Our young learners are going to grow up using English as an international language, and they're going to use it to speak to people from all over the world. And ours is already an interconnected world, but I can't even imagine how much more so it's going to be when these young learners are older. So they need to become acquainted with other cultures as early as possible to celebrate these, but also to see the similarities and differences between their culture and another culture. And here, for example, the opening photo shows 2 young girls from Chile dancing in traditional dress. And then the song, which is from Senegal, you can see that we're going to be getting a pretty active song. And you see in the illustration, we have 2 men drumming. You would have the kids drum, and you have some people dancing. You have some people clapping. You have some people singing. And so all of these things are going to be in the song, and they're going to actually then be able to act these out. So let's go to the song.
Track 4.4. Song. Listen and sing.
Sing a song and beat on a drum. Dance around and stomp on the ground. Sing a song and beat on a drum. Dance around and stomp on the ground. Sing as loud as you can. Sing along with a friend. Sing a song and beat on a drum. Sing as loud as you can. Sing along with a friend. Sing a song and beat on a drum. Sing a song and beat on a drum. Clap your hands and stomp on the ground. Sing a song and beat on a drum. Clap your hands and stomp on the ground.
I think we'll stop that here, but how many of you found yourselves just absolutely practically dancing in your chairs? This is a wonderful song, and again, an opportunity to celebrate another culture. And I noticed in the chat room, one of you mentioned that you actually learned a lot about your children's cultures. Absolutely. One of the things we want to make sure we're doing is we're helping our young learners to develop as local citizens as well as global citizens. We want them to be proud of their celebrations, of their songs, and as well as to be learning other celebrations and other songs. And for the language and use in this one, Polly the parrot says, "What are you doing?" And Eddie says, "I'm dancing." And so you would actually point, have them then have the children then ask and answer, "What are you doing?" And they would say, "I'm singing, I'm dancing, I'm clapping." You would actually you could do the gestures with them. "I'm stomping," and then "I'm shouting." So again, I think this is a really wonderful song, and your children will be able to play this and sing it a number of times. So we also want our young learners to develop, because as good local and global citizens, I mentioned that, and one of the things they need to learn to do is how to politely request. And so in this particular activity, they're actually listening to and saying, can you help me?" "Yes, I can." "Thank you." "You're welcome, Freddie." And so they're learning very basic, yes, how do you ask for somebody for help? And what do you say when in fact they give you some help? Again, they're going to be able to use this with a lot of other speakers of English from around the world. And here, asking for something, not just for help, but for something. And Mia says, "May I have the book, please?" And Freddie says, "Yes." And Mia says, "Thanks, Freddie." And Freddie says, "You're welcome, Mia." And I always love the fact that Freddie is constantly jumping. So you have then an opportunity to have them practice. How do you ask for something politely? And what do you do when somebody gives it to you? And this one is a little harder because there's a natural tendency, particularly among very young children, to take what they want. And so we have to learn that we have to help them learn how to share. So in the first upper left, we have Eddie saying, "I need the paint," but Mia also saying, "I need the paint too." And notice that she grabs it, and what happens? It spills. And so Mia has to say, "I'm sorry." And Freddie says, "Oh, that's okay." So that was not very good. And we certainly do not want our young learners to just grab things. So in the next one, Eddie recommends, "Let's share." And Mia says, "Okay." And then Eddie says, "I like your picture." And Mia says, "Thanks, I like your picture too." So we've had the importance of sharing, apologizing, and complimenting. Note that we're actually teaching some basic values here in the ways in which other animals interact, and the ways in which we then can interact with each other. A very nice way of getting them to develop this. And we want to have some games. This happens to be a game that comes from a review of units 5 to 8 at level 1. And it's a very, very simple game. Most of these are on an online practice tool that actually the children can use at home. So let's actually see the game. Okay.
Blocks.
Okay, so we've got two things going on here. The first one, this one, actually had the giraffe has spun a 5, and then the giraffe has to move 5 steps. And so you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4, and then has to go to the second level of 5. So they keep doing this, and this is a good review of numbers and actually being able to count the number of steps. And the second one is simply a chance to remember the vocabulary, the review of the vocabulary. But games are really very valuable. They provide a change of pace. They help to prevent boredom, and they can be done at home as well as in class. They can appeal to different learning styles. So that was a very good example of both audio and kinesthetic, and the second one was visual. Provide natural practice, repetition. They are motivating. They can be done outside of class, and they can help develop social skills, especially if they're done in pairs or in groups. And of course, they're fun. So just very quickly to summarize, young learners like and learn from activities that are meaningful, related to their lives and what they know, are purposeful. They use language to do things, to have real and relevant outcomes. that is enjoyable, that arouse curiosity and spark interest, that's social, with natural interaction and communication with others, developing a sense of community in the class and cooperation, and supported by visuals, role plays, visuals, actions, gestures, and then very important, by help and praise as well. We want to make sure you know that they're not going to be doing all of this perfectly. They're not going to say it perfectly. Their gestures are not always going to be quite right. You want to praise them and also help them. We do not expect perfection. Over time, that their language will get increasingly better, and so will their abilities to do role plays. They're both gross motor skills in such things as gestures, and their fine motor skills in such things as drawing. So we want to be able to use chants, songs, role plays, stories, projects, games, and that they enjoy these and that they learn from the repetition. So just to end, teaching very young learners can obviously be challenging, but boy, can it be a lot of fun. Thanks. So over to you, Emily.
Great. Thanks so much, Jody. There's a lot of wonderful questions that have come up in the Q&A in the chat box. Before we go into a Q&A portion, I just want to mention that as you see on the screen, this image of Welcome to Our World, the wonderful frog here, many of the examples that Jody showed today were from Welcome to Our World, second edition, and Jody is a series editor of that. It's part of the Our World suite of materials for young learners. Our World is for young learners, and so is Explore Our World, and Welcome to Our World is for very young learners. So if you're interested in learning a little bit more about that, I did put a link to an interactive sampler, which has a ton of information. It's basically an interactive catalog. You can listen to some of the songs in there, see videos, but definitely be sure to check that out and contact your National Geographic Learning representative if you have any questions about obtaining it for your classroom and using it with your very young learners. So great, I think now we can hop into the Q&A portion. I have a few here that I've flagged, Jody, and I can read them to you.
Thank you.
Oh, hang on one second, my Q&A box is just, oh, darn.
Actually, I think I can open this now.
Do you see them? I got booted out of Zoom a second ago and I've lost the questions above.
Here, I have them. It was hard last time. I couldn't see them, but I can now. Okay.
Okay, great.
Could you please throw some light on how to engage young learners in nonverbal communication? I think the best way to do that is, of course, through doing it with them. So for example, every time that they do something like jump, they're beginning to do nonverbal communication. When they actually are introducing themselves and turning to see each other, they are doing nonverbal communication. So with the gestures in particular, with eye contact, with any kind of action that they do, you can actually model that. And that if, for example, you could do that song we just did that comes from Senegal, on which you stomp your feet and clap and so forth, sing a song, you could actually have them just simply show you how that works, to actually do the song just in actions. So the next question is, a 5-year-old Chris, who's a Chinese boy in my reading class, cannot sit still, and my TA reminds him all the time to sit still. I feel this is not right, but need your advice on how to do properly. I think we do have children who are just, I think one of you used this in the chat room, who are hyperactive. I think you're going to have to let Chris do some things that maybe others are not doing. In other words, give him a little bit more responsibility where he actually gets a chance to, maybe if it's in a reading class, he gets to get the reader and open it for other children. I mean, give him some kind of a task to do, which will use up some of that energy and enable him to then be able to focus more on the classroom. Okay. Somebody's asking, how can collaboration with other subjects be possible to make some tune songs be familiar and relevant, especially for teachers who are not musically or verbally confident? Oh, good. Emily, do you want to answer that?
Oh, I was just marking it as answered. You're the expert here.
Oh, no. Okay. Sorry. let's see, where did that go? I don't not
Oh,
see.
it's in the answered section.
Oh, okay, wait a minute, let me go to it. Okay, actually, if you noticed, all of almost everything that we did today had content from other subjects, right? I mean, we had science, we had math, we had through values a little bit about social studies. So how do you don't have to use songs, you can use chants because we all can chant. And actually you could, if you know the songs that are special for the children in your classroom, you can take those and change the words so that it fits whatever the content is that you're actually focusing on. Notice, by the way, maybe I didn't make this clear, many of these songs do not have, with the new lyrics, anything to do with what the original lyrics were, like La Cucaracha. But the tune is so familiar that you can then put new words on it. So I think maybe that's how you can do it. I actually, to tell you, I am not musically very, very confident. When I was young, I was allowed to be in the glee club. This was in high school, so long as I never sang. So I could stand there and pretend, but they wouldn't let me sing because my singing was so bad. So I understand how you feel, but I think there are ways you can get around it. So let's go back to the others. Question of why it's difficult for the young learner to learn how to write in English. Well, there are several things. First, very young learners, it's just difficult to learn how to write. They don't have the control of the small motor skills. But one of the really difficult problems about English, of course, is that we have 44 sounds, but we only have 26 letters. And so we have unusual combinations that, for example, I can say the sound E by spelling it B-E, S-E-A, S-E-E, S-I-E, and I could just go through many, many words, and that all represents the same sound of E. The other thing I think is just that it takes time to learn how to write, and you probably do not want them to be writing in English until they're able to write in their own language. The writing that we do in Welcome to Our World, in our world, is very, very simple in the beginning, and you need to allow your young learners to make mistakes. We have what is called invented spelling, and it's because it's so hard to spell in English. It doesn't matter. You ask them to draw, and then they can label, and if they misspell it, that's fine, because over time, if they know what it sounds like, by the way, they know that E sound, and maybe they're spelling it in a very strange way, but they can tell you what it is. One of the nice things to do when children actually draw and do a little bit of writing is to have them tell you what they just wrote, because they know what it's, and that will give you a chance. This is real, authentic communication, and over time, their writing will get more and more like what we would want to expect. Okay. Actually, the next one, what are the challenges associated with teaching writing? I actually do full webinars on these, and there's a lot. I think that, let me give you two or three. One of the challenges is from the teacher's perspective. It's a large class. You may have not, it may be difficult for you to actually evaluate all of the writings. And so sometimes also we ourselves are not very confident about our writing. Around the world, because I've given seminars on this around the world, the last skill that is always taught is writing. And I think it's because we're not very confident. We don't have enough time. Our classes are too large. And so what I try to focus on is how can you involve writing with reading so that you've got, those are complementary skills.
Jody, I think after maybe one more.
Okay. Yeah, I think so too. Oh, well, actually, why don't you answer? Are there more webinars coming in recent days? I'll let Emily.
Yes, that's a great segue. We do have plenty more webinars coming up. We have
2020?
yeah, exactly. No, coming up. We have one almost every week in April, so you can check them out, register for them on the URL that's on the page right now. There's a QR code for it too, eltngl.com/webinars. Whether you're teaching very young learners, teens, or adults, we have definitely webinars for you. And there is a way that you can sort the different webinars on the site and look into past recordings of ones that Jody's done before. There's a tons of different topics, so we hope you definitely check those out. And just last but not least, I do see some questions about the certificate. Don't worry at all. We will be getting this to you within 5 business days. We'll be sending you an email with it. If you do not receive it within 5 business days, you can always feel free to email us at ngl.webinars@cengage.com. Great. And we'll also be posting the recording to this session if you missed any part of it, or if you want to forward it along to your colleagues on our webinar archive. So that should be up in just a few days too. I want to give a huge thank you to Jody for these 2 great sessions. So many important topics that were covered. And thank you everyone for joining us too. It was really nice to spend an hour together.
Yeah, let me also add, it was wonderful to be with all of you. Thanks so much.
Yeah, we had close to 700 people on this session. So what a
That's-
community.
That's the good thing about technology. Sometimes it's a real problem, but this is good. And actually, one of you asked about, are there any webinars on teaching virtually? And yes, you may want to look at those.
Yeah. And then last but not least, I do see a question about our social media pages. Our Facebook page is National Geographic Learning ELT. And we do have a few different Facebook pages depending where you are in the world. So be sure to follow them too. Hope you all have a great rest of your day, whether it's the afternoon, morning, or evening.
Yeah, right. Bye,
All right.
everybody.
Bye, all.